Greetings, greetings. How are you? Welcome to Be Strong Families webinar series, Staying Strong and Positive for Ourselves and Our Children. I'm Katthe, and I'm joining from Wadsworth, Illinois. And Robyn is here with me, and she's joining from DeKalb, Illinois. So as you come into the room, if you would go into the chat and select the second on the drop-down menu, it should, mine says everyone. I got the latest Zoom update, so mine says everyone. Because we want you to be speaking to everyone when you're speaking in the chat, because that way you can get, I don't have to read. It's not as important for me to read what you said because other people are also able to read it. So, and we use the chat as a major form of interaction here. So we're going to get started in about 30 seconds, but just would love to see who's here. Hi, Rosine. Nice to see you again. Who else is here besides Rosine? I don't want to have to open up and call you out. Hi, LaSharon. Nice to see you. Tammy, welcome. And it's 12 o'clock, so let's move.
Awesome. Welcome again, everybody. I'm Robyn, and we are going to finish up on our week-long adventure through relationship-based practice and making effective referrals. Today, our topic is going to be past the referral stage, the importance of following up, and meaningful relationships. And Katthe and I are going to take you through together. Next slide, please.
Robyn is our National Director of Training and TA, and I am the CEO of Be Strong Families. So just to kind of...
Thanks for adding that, Katthe.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, so ways to engage. If you're not talking, please put your phone on mute. When you're ready to comment, raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Then you'll need to mute yourself so you can be heard. Be patient with us. There's almost 20 people on, and so we'll get to as many people like raising their hands as possible. To bring your voice further into the room, use the chat. Like Katthe said, make sure it's going to all panelists and attendees. And if you have the most updated version of Zoom, it'll say to everyone. You can find that by clicking your chat button. Our webinars all run on agreements. So the agreements for today are, let's speak from our own experience, use I statements, use the golden rule, treat other people the way you want to be treated, use full presence, no multitasking. If you need a minute, take a minute, and we will be here when you get back. All right, next slide.
We need people to agree to the agreement.
Oh, you know what, Katthe? That totally escaped me until I saw the people chatting. These are all of our regulars. Thanks, guys, for keeping us honest. So if you agree to these agreements, please type I agree in the chat. That way everybody knows that this is a safe place for us to share. Thank you.
Cool. Let's go to the next slide. So we're picking up where we left off yesterday in talking about relationships. And the premise of this, this webinar is that there's a parallel process. And this is kind of how Be Strong Families works too. Like before we start talking about what you do with families, we want to talk about what you do in your own life for yourself. So here's the question. To you, what is a meaningful relationship? And feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand. The chat is often the primary way that people engage. So in the context of the topic, which is relationship-based practice, which is a foundation, that's the foundation, is relationship-based practice and making effective referrals. We're wrapping up today with the concepts. So to you, what's a meaningful relationship?
We have some comments in the chat, Katthe. Laureen said shared conversation, and Tammy offered one of mutual respect, support, and love. Johanna said building communication, trust, and empathy.
Cool. I like those definitions.
Yeah, those are good.
Building communication, trust and empathy, mutual respect, support, love, shared conversation.
And Adrienne said a 2 or more way conversation without judgment.
mean, when I think about my meaningful relationships, they also sometimes include shared history, and they include, shared experiences. And I need to feel safe in them. I think that's in part of mutual respect, support, and love. But a meaningful relationship is one that helps me move forward, but the context is safe, overarching safe, so that some difficult conversations can happen. And I don't need like a tremendous filter. This is in personal relationships. I don't need a lot of filter. I can take directness, and if the context of I really trust the person. And Catherine says she loves and agrees with all the descriptions mentioned. Awesome. So let's go to the next question. And this one is, how do you continue to, I like this question because it's kind of like, as adults, it can be difficult to increase and expand our networks of meaningful relationships. So how do you continue to expand your network of meaningful relationships so that it gets both deeper and wider? When we say deeper, we mean that the relationships themselves get deeper, like they just don't stay at a surface level, that they ripen, or that they just get closer and more intimate. And when we say wider, we mean basically more people. Like, how do you meet people, and how do you continue to meet people and continue to make friends or make meaningful relationships? And this is a challenging question. I know that it's challenging because we're busy. A lot of us are busy. I'm going to say for me, I spend a lot of time at work, and, so I can talk about my work family, and I can talk about work relationships getting more and more meaningful with shared history and communication and respect and trust and all of that. But, that doesn't necessarily bleed, I guess, because I'm the boss too. It doesn't necessarily bleed over into feeling like I really have a wide and deep network of personal support. So I've been working on that the last couple of years in terms of like meeting people. Often I meet people when I do something new, like if I go to a class, take a class, or, I moved, and so maybe meeting my neighbors. But I see that there's a lot of activity in the chat, Robyn. So do you want to?
Yeah, there is. I'll go ahead and read some of them. So Adrian offered, you must go out of your comfort zone and meet up in real life. Laureen is saying eye contact with interest showing, ask for more detail. Then we have Catherine saying, I think finding new groups that share the same interests. Tammy is offering, I think they get deeper through meaningful conversation. Wider, I think getting involved in more things in our communities, be it church or neighborhood, would lead to more friendships. Dee is saying, be intentional and seek it out. Those are all really great things. This is something that's typically on my mind too. Like Katthe, I have a lot of acquaintances, but not a lot of deep friendships. And I always ask my husband, like, how do we make friendships as adults? Like at school, there's a common thing you're going to. So of course I have work friends because we have that proximity, that shared experience. 1/3 of my life is spent at work, and not another third of my life is spent anywhere. So yes, I believe that you have to get out there. I think you have to do it intentionally. I love, Katthe, that you said you're going to meet your new neighbors. Like maybe that'll be a source of friendship. That's really cool. I just moved 2 years ago. And while we haven't developed a friendship yet, I did go out of my way to meet the neighbors this time. I lived in my old neighborhood and I didn't really know any of them deeply. This time I went over, introduced myself, and we're not deep friends yet, but we're friendly. So it's great.
So yeah, so we wanted to build this foundation of thinking about ourselves and thinking about how we make friends and how we meet people. Before we go into the next question, which is, how do you encourage the families you serve to expand their networks and make them deeper and wider? And the question after that, which is related, is what are some positive practices that are working for you personally and professionally. So I guess we do the professional one first, which is how do you encourage the families you serve to build their networks of support, and what are you doing in your program or in your practice professionally that assists them to get them there. I know a lot of times people have events. I mean, COVID has restricted some of that, but opportunities to participate in events or to plan events. I mean, cafes are one example, but not the only one. And people do make friends at cafes by sharing deeply, conversation. They find commonalities and they find that safety. And so, I know organizations that do cafes, they would probably say that's one thing that works professionally.
Yeah, and that's what Tammy said too. I encourage them to attend our parent cafes and other group connections. Adrian said through their interests, and reminding them that going or participating in one session / meeting / event is not going to make a deep relationship. Go again and again. And Katthe, what just popped in my mind is using Pactal, our partners at Pactal as an example. Like, they offer ukulele lessons. That really has nothing to do with like serving, families, other than giving them that opportunity for a social connection. And when you're learning the ukulele, you're coming over and over and over again. So you're getting to know people at a deeper level. I think that's great. And it just like occurred to me that's
yeah.
great.
And I think that, sometimes I know Yolande, who runs that Pactal program, is extremely strategic. So ukulele seems like a weird thing to do,
Right.
but there's a reason underneath it for why ukulele and not guitar and not whatever. And I don't know exactly what it is, but I want us to find it out, because I know that, for example, she also does a lot of, like, in the summers, even during COVID, she was doing outings with families to go to the botanical gardens or to go to the beach. And a lot of, you might think those are just recreational activities and opportunities for people to meet each other and get to know each other, but they were also really important kind of mental health interventions, because there was a lot of fear in the community about, not COVID even, but just the anti-immigration stuff. There was a lot of fear, and people did not feel safe taking their children out of the house, to do anything. And so there was a concern that in the community, and the community members expressed it, that their children were being isolated, and that they were being cooped up, and that they weren't having the kind of normal experiences that kids should be able to have, because the families didn't feel safe, And so how does the program create opportunities that are fun, and don't seem like they're always about like teaching you, but that really serve a number of purposes?
Yeah, I love that. Catherine offered encouraging our parents to meet, talk, and connect with their children's friends.
Yeah, and Catherine also said encourage attendance of group meetings that will help find parents or others with the same interests or issues, and then great idea to invite them to a parent cafe.
Yeah, and Tammy just offered, really, as far as clients go, the only way for them to get to know one another is group events. Due to confidentiality, we can't tell them that the family 2 doors down from them would be great to get to know. This really happened. I worked with clients who lived so close to each other, but until they both showed up for an event, they didn't know each other, or that they were both in our program.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how about like just personally, what are some positive practices, or maybe it's even like making a commitment to something that you will do? I mean, I'm thinking that would strengthen your network of meaningful relationships. And I'm going to think of 2 examples that off the top of my head, which is I've had the intention to write a note to my neighbors. I have three, I live it's kind of rural, but there's like 3 houses that are close enough to like walk to, that are like I consider my neighbors. And I was thinking when I first moved in that I would do I would write a note and I would put it in their mailbox and I would tell them my name and that I just moved in March and that, I have breathing time now and that here's my phone number and, would love to get together, invite them over for, dinner or something like that, just to make the connection. So that's one thing that I'm going to commit to doing when I get home from vacation, because I'm going on vacation tomorrow.
Wouldn't it be great, Katthe, if you took them some of your fresh vegetables out of your garden?
Yeah, I'm not about that right now. Put a cucumber in their mailbox. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
No, don't you have more than cucumbers? You got great
kohlrabi. Their door, like without, anyway, that's a long thing. The other thing that I've been doing is, like going back into relationships. Like I find with relationships that I had when I was younger, like people I went to college with or that I was very close with, like once you're close to them, you're always close to them. Like when we get back together, that there's just that shared, I don't know, like we can just take the conversation from where it was, all those years ago. And so I'm finding ways to be able to connect with multiple people from my past, and like an example is for Be Strong Families is that I have a number of people who are environmental nonprofit people, and there's not really a bridge right now that I know of. If you know of one, put it in the chat, but I don't know that many family-oriented organizations that are also like really active in sustainability or green or climate change or whatever. I tend to think the family support field is pretty isolated from the environmental field. I know my friends don't know anything about family support. So I was thinking of just inviting them all to, I actually did this, inviting them all to a Zoom meeting to kind of just share, what would it look like if we tried to bring ourselves together? So that's just two examples from my life. Rochelle says, we've been conducting parent cafes as part of our engaging parents in our program. We add a parent activity to that, and it's been really successful. Many of our parents attend them regularly, and they're always asking when the next one will happen. They assist us in coming up with topics that are meaningful for them. And Tammy says, yes, it's almost like no time has passed, right? And then Catherine says, combining educational, informational meetings with fun activities to break up the serious talks, for example. I add Zumba, mindfulness practices, and self-care ideas. Food is a doorway to connect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Community garden, baking pies for a neighbor on one side and cakes for the other neighbor. That helps with my lawn. The other side, haven't brought myself to accept dinner invite or parties yet, though. Got it. Still being careful about COVID, especially with all that Delta variant out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do, Robyn, what's a couple things that you're gonna, I'm asking for commitments now, is one thing that you on the call, besides Dee, who's baking pies and cakes, but that you are gonna do to strengthen your personal network?
So I would just have to say that I've been thinking about taking a crocheting class this winter, fall into winter. I know how to knit. I taught myself how to knit on YouTube, but I want to learn to crochet for a lot of different reasons. And I think that will be a great place for me to pick up some new people who could turn into friends. That's one of them. And I think that the other one is just to continue my I'm the one that's leaving cucumbers in your mailbox and eggs. And it's not a way to widen my circle, but it is a way to deepen and intentionally have time with my friends in a safe manner, because I'm still pretty isolated and pretty quarantined still. But I do a lot of driveway meetings, just saying hello and that kind of stuff. Lori said hobbies and book clubs. That's awesome.
And Tammy says, I have a friend I'm going to reach out to that I haven't talked to in a while, not for any reason. We've just been busy. It'll be nice to talk to her.
Yeah, that's great, Tammy.
So what are others of you going to do? Oh, Rochelle says, I want to join a book club this fall or winter. I love to read, and it's something we can do on Zoom. Nice. Zoom coffee breaks. And Tammy's going to look for a crochet group too. They call it Stitch and Bitch.
That's funny, Tammy.
I just think this is a good question for all of us, just in terms of self-care. And it's also like the parallel process, the modeling that you're, even if you struggle with it, you know, like I guess when I've talked to helping professionals before in cafes and stuff, it's one thing that is, you know, you have your husband or your partner and you have your best friend and you have your relatives, you know, or a certain group, like people have a small circle, but sometimes can end up feeling isolated. And so if you're trying to assist families with becoming less isolated, one thing that helps you relate to their process and also gives you a lot of credibility is working on your own becoming less isolated. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you can connect, you can kind of say, you know what, I know it's tough. Like I just, you know, tried to do this and this, and it was hard, you know, it's hard to get myself to go out at night. We always talk about that, or we used to talk about that in one of our trainings on cafes, is like people always struggle with the in-person cafes. When we had the in-person cafes, but struggle with like, people don't come. And I was like, okay, so when's the last time you went out of the house at night after work to do something that wasn't necessary to do for your child? You know, like, and you didn't have to, no one was counting on you. And people are like, well, it's been a while. It's like, right, it's tough to do that. It's tough, you know, to kind of like, when you're exhausted, you know, and you've worked hard a full day and you have your, you know, responsibilities at home, it's hard.
It is. There's several different comments I'd like to read too. There's
Maureen?
Catherine, Lauren, positive practice, short check-in phone calls. And Catherine said, personally encouraging my friends or people to join me in new adventures or experiences like paint and sip or a yoga class. And Laura said, if you have a skill, you can offer it to others in a group setting. I'm a massage therapist. How about a chair massage for a group? I would come to that. And let's see, anybody else? Oh, yep, there's a couple. Adrian, it's difficult to get sitting in care, so Zoom cafes make sense. Yes, they do. They take a couple barriers away for sure. Tammy offered, exactly, after work, after feeding the kids, doing homework, baths. Yes, that's your comment of not leaving the house. I get that too. And Laura, Tammy would come to your massage group too. So at least you've got two people to come on over.
Well, if we lived anywhere near each other. Okay,
right?
Let's go to the next slide, because we're, the other topic was the importance of following up. So in the context of developing meaningful relationships, and I think partly, you know, relationship-based practice is developing meaningful relationships with the people that we're serving. So, you know, and I am really confident that all of those of you who are working one-on-one with families or in a center, family resource center, like, you get it, you're doing it, you're developing meaningful relationships with the families you serve. They feel cared about, they feel listened to, they feel supported, they feel respected, they feel all those positive things that you were talking about in the beginning, about communication and trust and non-judgment and all of that. So in the context of that, why is it not enough to simply make a referral? This is a softball question. It should be an easy one for you guys to answer. Why is it not enough to just, when somebody needs housing, to just give them the phone number of the place where they can find housing, or give them the, why is that not enough? Why is it not enough to sit at the computer with them and look for childcare and talk to them about, you know, what they want in childcare, and get to the, you know, childcare resource and referral agency and find free programs and say, okay, there you go? Why is that not enough? Adrienne raised her hand. Is there a hand raised? Andrew? Well, you're not educating the client on the resources. Could be various reasons why they don't follow through with the calls, making appointment, getting there, anxiety, transportation issues, childcare issues. Yep. What else, Adrienne? You can unmute yourself.
Good morning. Thank you. It's really important that we make a much more personal connection when we make a referral, because follow-up and dumping that on somebody who is already in distress or has fear and anxiety about coming out about their situation can overcome the actual help and just lead them to doing nothing. So rather than just say, here's the suicide hotline number, call them, you need to stay on the phone with them and say, okay, can you call them while I'm still on Zoom with you? And then you say, I will stay here with you until you are connected and you let me know that it's time to, continue your private phone call with these people. And I think that that is being supportive and uplifting, rather than saying, oh, you have an issue, whatever that issue is here's a number, call them, and coming from a place where a lot of people handed me a lot of numbers, and nobody followed up. All I can say is you can call those numbers until the cows come home sometimes and not reach what you need. Okay, you can easily be put into a voicemail and never expect a number back, right? Never expect someone to be calling you back, but just taking that first step can really overcome the fear. So if you hold their hand through the first step while they leave that voicemail, then you can talk about those feelings of actually taking a first step and what it might be like to receive the phone call back. And all of these things overcome the initial anxiety and fear of doing something.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
And we don't have our moms with us anymore, sometimes for various reasons, just location perhaps, to be holding our hand physically while we do something new. And that's sort of where our friends need to come together a little bit more in deeper meaning. And some people are just more comfortable doing it, I'll put it in quotes, anonymously, which is kind of what the parent cafes are about. So having somebody help you, even if it is just a leader in the group, is really important.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Adrienne. And that's what I'm seeing in the chat also. And I see a lot of it's about parents having fears and anxiety and the compassion of knowing it's difficult to make the call. I think there's two other things that haven't been said yet, but are probably in the water for a lot of you. One of them is, if in the context of a meaningful relationship, it's not just that you've given them the task, it's that you actually care what happens. And the second thing is, and this is part of the second part of knowing that people are vulnerable and having a rough time, and that it's hard to go outside of your comfort zone, especially when you're having a rough time, is that you don't know what's happened after they made the call. If you simply make the referral, it could be that they did it, they made the call, they even set up the appointment, but maybe they had a really difficult interaction with the people. I mean, I know I've talked to people who run family support centers, and like saying, they were shocked that some of the times when they referred someone to a trusted resource, they got put on a waiting list and nothing happened. And the parent was, didn't want to come back and say, nothing happened, because they didn't want the person who referred to feel bad or be embarrassed or whatever. But it was really, you don't get the information on whether the resources are responsive or not unless you follow up, So let's see, what's the next question? Yeah, and these are related. I mean, why should we be concerned with getting those we're assisting what they need and advocating with them? So I guess it's also in the context, that's kind of where I was going. You really don't want just to make the referral so that you can mark down that you've made the referral. You want to be able to make sure that people get what they need, and what they think they need initially, or what you think they need initially, might change. So I guess I feel like what I've been doing in terms of wrapping up is kind of knitting these things together in terms of the meaningful relationship, which is about caring and trust, is fed, like Tammy was saying earlier, with communication. So making a referral is one part of the communication, but following up is builds the relationship, shows people that you care about them, shows that you care not only that you've done your job, but that you've done your job by pointing them in a direction, but that you also really sincerely, it matters to you that they get what they need. So thank you for being here today. Thank you. And tomorrow we have a parent cafe. So anybody is free, register, come. And next week, when I'm on vacation, the topic is human-centered child welfare. Robyn will be here, and Tiffany is here one day, and Corrine is here. And we have a lot of training and workshops that are specifically geared towards folks that are involved with the child welfare system, birth parents, foster parents, kids in care. We do a lot of work, like more than 400 direct service events a year with people in the child welfare system. And Robyn is over all that work, and she's put together this beautiful array of opportunities. So please join next week.
Thanks, everyone. If you have an opportunity to join us on August 26th and 27th, we do have a registration-based workshop. It's our Living the Protective Factors, and it's 2 half days. You can use the QR code there to zip with your phone to get more information on that.
Awesome. So thank you, everybody. It's 12:30 exactly. We're going to get off, and look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. See you guys next week. Have a great vacation, Katthe.
Thank you.